Hello, thanks for joining me. In this video today, I'm going to give you some tips for how to navigate the really interesting housing market right now. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but the housing market situation ties into a really bigger idea when it comes to the world of divorce and thinking about how do I change my unhealthy status quo. And it really, in any big change, it starts with just the decision to do it. So you have to do small steps or you get overwhelmed, right? And that's sort of intuitive to a lot of people. If we give you individual little action steps, then it's slowly but surely you get to the finish line, which if you're watching this video, for most of you, I think you're probably dreaming of a day where you're going to actually be in two households. And when people come to me, I hear all kinds of excuses as to why they have not moved forward already with this process, even though they have known for, oftentimes many years that their marriage was really over and that they needed to move into something else. So obviously, the most common excuse that I hear is we were waiting for the kids to get older. And that is, I think a lot of you can relate to the idea that that is really not a good thing. You are not doing your kids any favors by staying in an unhealthy relationship. There's lots of research behind that. It's not the fact that their parents live in two households that is so traumatic to the children. It is the way the parents treat each other and the way that transition or the divorce takes place that is so toxic. And obviously, that is something that is completely within your control, right? So having a delay happening because you don't want to upset the kids, that's really truly BS. You can completely move into two households without traumatizing your kids. And that's actually the entire philosophy on which Family Transitions was built. And the program that I guide people through is designed to absolutely minimize and avoid the trauma on the kids. So that excuse is sort of just that, an excuse, right? And the second one I hear very often is that we just can't afford to get divorced right now. And this one's interesting because it really comes down also to personal choices. Like, yes, there's no question that separating all of your finances from one group into two is a little bit complicated and take some planning, and that doesn't at all mean it can't be done and isn't done every day. In Family Transitions, I work with families of all different financial means, all different economic status, and that I've never had someone truly be unable to move forward because the finances were so tight. What you do need is appropriate coaching and guidance and a little bit of reflection on, hey, where can we change things? Where might we need to sort of cut the purse strings on the older children a little bit so that we can make sure that the parents are okay? But all of that can absolutely be done, and it can be done very compassionately, very smoothly if you take it just one step at a time. And again, that's part of what I can guide you through if you need help with that. But what we're really here to talk about today is the most common excuse right now, which is the housing market. And there's, obviously no question that we're in historically a very difficult housing market in terms of low inventory and high interest rates. And that will turn itself around eventually. But what I really want to help you with today are some ways to really think about that housing market and figure out ways to adapt and conquer, which is one of my favorite mottos. So you can always adapt to your current situations, which allows you to conquer and thrive and move forward. And the current housing market is no different, right? So The biggest thing that I want you to think about here is that the interest rates are very likely going to stay historically high for many, many months into the future, which leaves us all having to adapt to in some way. So the key is creativity when you look at this situation, because if you actually decide that you're going to wait and hold off on moving forward into separate houses or transitioning into separate houses at some point down the road, you're actually increasing the amount of money that needs to be exchanged as part of the divorce process, which actually could make the process more complicated. Because if you have someone right now who, based on their income and the amount of equity they would need to pull out of the house to pay off another spouse, if that person right now would qualify to pull that out and put the mortgage in their name, they would be paying the other spouse somewhat less, because the house value will just continue to go up. So the longer you wait, the longer, the higher the price value is going to be. And if they qualify now, that is great. The other person can move on with their lives and transition into two households. And regardless of whether or not both people then, buy, or you'd have the second person also buying, you both have the ability to refinance again at a later date. So my real estate agent friends always say, like, you marry the house, but date the rate. That's considered to be very temporary. So the advantage of moving forward now, if you're going to do a full refi, is that you are likely having to pull less equity out of the house, which makes it easier for you to afford to qualify for that refi. And it also allows you to think in terms of, I can move forward now and I can always refinance this interest rate later. Okay, so that's one perspective. The other perspective that a lot of my clients are doing is to just be super creative about how we're going to shift equity out of the house. And you look at everything holistically. You look at all of your marital assets. And if one person is going to rent for a year, you know that the person staying in the house really has a year before a refinance is necessary. Now, a court isn't going to let you wait a year. But if you're working together outside of the system, you can wait a year, and then your settlement contract is going to say, like, when the refinance is done, how much money the other person is getting, and really where that money is coming from. So I've had clients who've gotten private loans, who've taken out individual lines of credit, who shift money from retirement accounts. So you really have to look at the entire asset picture, and then you can really be creative about how to navigate this current housing situation in a way that is, I don't want to say financially beneficial, but certainly less financially damaging than what the news would have you think right now. Okay. The last piece of this that you should think about also is in terms of these interest rates. And this was just pointed out to me again, also by another mortgage professional. Like, people are freaking out about the interest rates, but in fact, even though housing prices are still also historically high, when the interest rates come down, they anticipate that demand is going to boom even higher, which means housing prices are just going to go higher as well. So that's going to impact you, both spouses, in two ways. Number one, the house you're living in, that price is going to be higher, as we already talked about, and that impacts the amount of equity that is going to have to be pulled out. And the second way it impacts your family is that the spouse who's moving now, if they're looking to buy another house, their prices are going to be much higher also. So there's really, pros and cons of, the situation right now. But the message is that if you know that it's really time to move forward, because you're like dreading, looking at the news thinking, oh my God, does this mean I have to wait another year before I can move forward with this process? The answer is no. The answer is you have to have a mindset that says, I'm going to adapt and I'm going to conquer this situation so that we can both move forward and be healthy now. We're not going to wait any longer in an unhealthy or even toxic situation because of external factors. Really, it's as simple as deciding that you're going to figure out how to manage or conquer those external factors. And I'm happy to support you in figuring that out, but just taking those baby steps and thinking through some of the information that I've given you here to know that, hey, actually, this is doable. We just need to get some, ducks in a row, talk to a mortgage broker who can talk to us about how the buyout refinancing would go, what we would qualify for. You just start doing that homework and don't rush. And one thing will fall into place at a time. And before you know it, you will be on the path to your happy new future and 2 households. So hope you found this helpful. Thanks for joining me, and feel free to reach out if I can answer any questions for you. Thanks.